All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore one of the most, well, perplexing and honestly shocking prayers you'll ever come across. And it comes from a queen, a total survivor who, right at the peak of her family's victory, asks for something absolutely unbelievable.
And here it is. This is the prayer itself. Queen Kunti is speaking directly to Lord Kṛṣṇa, and she says, I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again. I mean, seriously, after everything she's gone through, she wants more of it? And that, of course, raises one very big question.
Why? I mean, why in the world would anyone, especially someone who's seen the worst of the worst, actively pray for more disaster? It just goes against every survival instinct we have. To really get it, to solve this puzzle, we have to understand her story.
So to get to the why, we first have to really understand the who. This prayer isn't coming from some abstract place. It's coming from a person with a long, long history of hardship. Okay, so picture this. The massive, devastating Kurukshetra war has just ended. Her sons, the Pandavas, have actually won. Peace has finally returned. And as Lord Kṛṣṇa is getting ready to leave, Queen Kunti comes up to him. So this prayer isn't coming from a place of despair. It's coming from a moment of victory.
And just look at the kind of stuff she went through. This is no exaggeration. We're talking about a poisoned cake fed to her son, being trapped in a house literally made of flammable material and set on fire. They faced cannibals, unbelievable public humiliation, years of exile. It was one thing after another. And every single time, they were saved at the last second.
So here's the most important part. When Queen Kunti talks about calamity, she knows exactly what she's talking about. This isn't some philosophical idea she's playing with. Her perspective is forged in the fire of real, lived experience. And that's what gives her prayer such incredible weight and, believe it or not, its own kind of logic.
Okay, so let's get into the heart of it. What is the actual logic behind asking for more suffering? Well, it all comes down to the second half of her prayer.
And there it is. That's the key that unlocks this whole thing. She doesn't want calamity just for the sake of it. She wants the result of the calamity, which for her was always a direct line to the divine. Seeing Kṛṣṇa, in her view, is liberation. It's the end of the whole cycle of birth and death. So here's her big idea. Calamity is a catalyst, a really powerful one. It has this way of stripping away all the noise, all the ego, and it forces this raw, sincere, spiritual connection. In those moments of total helplessness, we call out with a feeling that's just not there when life is easy and comfortable.
There's a perfect modern analogy for this. The airplane. Think about it. When the flight is smooth, you're just chilling, right? Watching a movie, maybe dozing off. But then, bam! You hit some crazy, violent turbulence. That feeling of complete helplessness washes over you. And what's the first thing most people do? They pray. And they pray with a sincerity they haven't felt all week. But then, the plane lands safely, and just as fast, we forget all about it.
Kunti understood this cycle perfectly. It's in those moments of absolute helplessness, when you realize you are not in control, that your connection to something bigger than yourself becomes the most real and the most powerful, which, of course, means the opposite can also be true.
Right, so if hardship can be a spiritual shortcut, Kunti's philosophy also has a pretty serious warning about what happens when things go a little too well.
This is the other side of the coin. She basically argues that material success, the very thing most of us are chasing, can actually act as a kind of spiritual blinder. It can make it harder to have that sincere connection. And she gets really specific. She points out 4 things: being born into a famous family, having tons of money, getting a fancy education, and having physical beauty. She says these things can lead to a state of pride, of intoxication, that makes it almost impossible to cry out with that sincere, helpless feeling we were talking about.
Yeah, the text is really clear here. The word it uses is intoxication. So it's not just garden variety pride, it's this state of being so puffed up with your own temporary success that you become spiritually numb. You just don't feel the need for that higher connection. So if that's the problem, what's the solution?
Okay, so let's bring it all home. This last part really solves the paradox we started with. It reveals what Kunti sees as the ultimate prize, something she calls the treasure of the poor.
This one Sanskrit term, akiñcana-vittāya, is the absolute heart of her prayer. It literally means the treasure or the property of those who have nothing materially. She's saying that the divine isn't the property of the rich and powerful, but is the exclusive treasure of those who feel they have nothing else left.
So let's be super clear.
Kunti is not a masochist. She is not praying for pain itself. She is praying for the priceless treasure that pain always, without fail, revealed to her. A constant, unbroken memory of the divine.
And that connection, that remembrance, that's the ultimate asset in her worldview. It's a kind of wealth you can't buy. In fact, it's often blocked by the very things we usually call assets, like money, status, and looks.
So if you're going to take just one thing away from all this, what should it be? It's this. Her prayer was never about wanting more suffering. It was about her desperate desire to never lose the deep connection that suffering, ironically, guaranteed her. The calamities were simply the price of admission for the things she valued above everything else.
And that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about in our own lives. What if we reframed our problems? What if, instead of things to be avoided at all costs, our greatest challenges are actually our greatest opportunities in disguise?